are you doing?
I'm good. Good morning. It is still the morning, right? No, it's the afternoon. When you do voice work
just
and play rock and roll all the time, you lose track of actually is it day, night, because we're in the studio all the time. I don't have a window.
Oh yeah, no, I totally understand that. That's how it is here, even though it does have the clock. All right, sir, can you explain who you are?
Oh my goodness. So we have to do the Reader's Digest condensed version.
Yeah.
So I'm Eric Stuart. I'm a voice actor for since I guess the beginning of time. As old as dirt. I've been the original voice for Brock and James on Pokemon. So for the first 10 years of that. Seto Kaiba from Yu-Gi-Oh, Meta Knight from Kirby, and various other characters throughout cartoon history. I also do a lot of commercial work that way and on audio books. I'm also a singer-songwriter. I front my band, the Eric Stuart Band. We play all original rock and roll. And I've toured with Ringo Starr, Peter Frampton, Leonard Skinner, Chicago, Hall & Oates, and guys like that. Those are my two sort of main careers. I also direct a lot of the cartoons that I worked on. I did some directing of the Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And Yu-Gi-Oh! GX and some wacky shows like Ultimate Muscle, which is a funny wrestling show that people should watch. Viva Pinata. Yeah, so that's what I do. Anything that's pretty much audio is my world, from voice acting to singing to directing.
I get that so much. That's my world pretty much starting right now.
Mm-hmm. I don't know anything about video. I will. People are like, "Can you also?" Nope, I can't.
I'm slowly learning video. Actually myself, just because that's what I studied, and it's only because I know audio otherwise. But anyway, how did you actually go on tour with Ringo Starr? How did that come about?
It was kind of a crazy story. I had been playing New York clubs, places like the Bitter End and Kenny's Castaways and the Bottom Line, and some really great venues there. And it was a great scene. And my management at the time said to me, "Hey, we have an opportunity for you. We don't want to tell you what it is, just in case it doesn't happen, because we don't want you to be disappointed. Is there any way you can get us just some recordings of you solo acoustic, guitar?" And I said, I'd been playing with a band at that point. I wasn't really doing a lot of solo shows. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I could get something. Now, this is long before the days of, being able to just, jump in front of your computer and record something. I actually had to find a cassette player to record to. And I went inside my walk-in closet with my little microphone and my little cassette recorder, and I sang 4 songs just right into it and sent it off to my management company. And 2 weeks later, they said, "Hey, yeah, so Ringo listened to this, and you're going to open some dates for him as a solo acoustic opening act." And I was like, "Oh, it's great." So I flew out to Seattle and started this tour. And, of course, the tour was it's the All-Star Band, Ringo Starr and his All-Star Band. So every year that he does it, he changes out who his guest stars are. And this particular year was Peter Frampton, Gary Brooker from Procol Harum, Jack Bruce from Cream, Simon Kirke from Bad Company, Ringo, Mark Rivera, who's a very talented musical director and just utility player, plays everything. And so it was like these were people that I had grown up listening to, and I was a fan of as well. So it was really cool to just not only play, start the show for them, but just to get to meet them and listen to them play every night. And what started off as maybe 8 or 9 shows that I was booked for, each time I would get to the last show of that particular leg of the tour, I'd get the okay from the promoter. You know what? Let's do another 8. And so, 8 shows became 26, which was really great because it was great. I would play at my show, and then I would go into the audience and watch their show. And that's why, of course, I have some great, friendships were formed then. I mean, especially with Peter Frampton. I mean, he is sort of like an older brother to me. He's just a dear friend, and that's where I got to meet him. And that tour led to touring with Skinner. The people at the Skinner tour saw me opening for Ringo, and 3 days later said, "Hey, we're going out." I just finished the tour and come home after being on the road for a little over a month. They were like, "Hey, we need an opening act too. Will you come out with us?" And so I went right back out on the road
Oh,
right
wow.
after that.
That's
And then
awesome.
followed the 2 summers after that, where I took the band out and we opened for Frampton for 2 summers in a row. And it just was great. I mean, I love performing. I love live music. I love the thrill of who knows what's going to go on that night.
Oh, yeah.
Are things going to go wrong? Are things going to go great? And it was a great experience. I mean, I loved it. But, going from the clubs to the big arenas in that big a jump was really the test of whether I should be doing this or not, whether I was even just mentally prepared to do it. Going to playing from like 50 people in a club in Manhattan to, as up to, I think our largest concert we played was 55,000 people.
Oh, my gosh.
And so when you do that, you just go, well, I guess if I can handle this, I should continue doing this. And it's still my favorite thing. I mean, I like recording. I love voice work. I love directing. All of that is fun. But to me, the live show is what it's all about.
Yeah, you put on a really great show at UBCon, which we met then. And
thank you.
Yeah, that was an amazing show. I got some good pictures. My one friend, he was doing some video of you, and he's probably going to edit that up at some point. But
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's great too because I mean, when I go to the conventions and the fans know me primarily for my voice work, and what I like to do is include a concert with either solo or with the band when I do make these appearances, is because I also want the fans to get a bigger picture of who I am, and it's really great when anime fans then become my music fans. Because fans are fans, and anybody who's supporting what I'm doing, it makes me feel good, and I like sharing, the things that I'm creating with people, with an audience. And so anime fans are just so loyal. It's one of the best audiences to play to.
So when did you actually start making music, pick up a guitar or whatever your first instrument was?
In 8th grade in my school, I went to a very cool progressive school in Brooklyn called St. Anne's, where we never had grades. I never had a grade in my life. It was all written reports, and if you were a really good math student and you were in 5th grade, you might be in the 10th grade math class. That's kind of how it was. So it just was this one big sort of, crazy family of students. But anyway, we had a music class. I think there were probably about 10 or 15 of us in this particular music class. And the majority of them were, 8th grade boys, which, I know how hard that is, 8th grade boys to pay attention to anything that aren't like video games and stuff like that. So our music teacher had a little bit of an uphill battle to try to get us to pay attention. And he was this really cool, sort of like hippie-looking musician. His name is Mike Fogarty. And Mike kind of looked at the classroom and said, you know what, and this is long before School of Rock ever came out, said, you know what, I think we should form a rock band. And we were all like, that's cool. Yeah, let's do that. And so he kind of went around the room and asked us, either if we played any instrument or what we wanted to play. And there was one of my friends played classical piano, and they were like, all right, you're going to be the keyboard player. Well, that kind of made sense. Another guy was like, well, I like drums. All right, you're the drummer. I like the bass. Oh, you're going to be the bass player. And then I had a guitar. I think I had a guitar that had 3 strings on it. And I was like, I like guitar. I kind of play a guitar. And they were like, all right, you're the guitar player. And then we had a friend who was a singer. And we wrote, actually, he didn't even sing that particular incarnation of the band, because the first thing we ever did was we wrote an instrumental. That was our thing. We wrote an instrumental song so that we could play it at the school assembly for the whole school.
Okay.
And so we spent the time and we learned it, and it was great, and we rehearsed it. And then we went and played this song, and I was really nervous. Everyone was really nervous, and we played it, and they loved it. And that response was like the first serious live performance for me. And I said, okay, now I'm going to take this a little bit more seriously. And so I of course found the other 3 strings for my guitar so that I'd have 6. And I started to sit in the school lobby with my acoustic guitar. As I said, we were a very progressive school. And, we'd all hang out on what was called the red stairs in the lobby. And I would sing songs, and I started to write my own stuff, but I was also just singing things, anything that was popular, I would just start playing songs on the steps. And that was kind of like the introduction to the performance stuff, just, the casual performances. It was great because if you want to make friends, to me, it's either you're funny or you play music. And I kind of was doing both. It was a great way to meet people and sort of develop friendships. And so that became the start of it. And then this particular teacher either quit or he was fired or I don't even know what, but the guys in the group, the core guys of that class decided we wanted to stay as a band, and we hired him to teach us rock songs at a local recording studio. Once a week, he would come in. We'd give him a list of songs or bands that we wanted to learn. We'd say, like, here's some Stone songs or Bob Seger or the Beatles, and, here's songs we like. And he would come in and teach them to us. And we played a couple of gigs in town. We were too young to actually get into the bars, but I booked us a show at a bar.
Oh, wow.
In like ninth grade. I was like, hey, I know we're underage and we won't drink, but we'll fill the place with people. And we did. We packed it with, of course, ninth graders who also couldn't drink. But, it was things like that. It's like it was the start of all of that. And I have to thank Mike Fogarty for being such an influence and coming up with that great idea to get these eighth grade boys to actually pay attention to music. So that's where it started.
So I'm guessing you produce your own music.
I've worked with other producers. I've co-produced some of my albums. Peter Frampton produced one of my records. There's times where you want to wear all of the hats and be in charge of things, and there's sometimes it's good to get another set of ears. The last 3 records the Eric Stuart Band I've produced, which has been good, but it is a lot of work. And of course, there's always input from the band as we're working on songs and albums. So it is definitely a democracy led by a monarch, if that makes any sense.
Oh, yeah. No, I get that. What program do you use, or like how many tracks do you normally lay down for like one song?
Oh, good. Technical questions.
Yes.
I like that. That's good. Well, because you're an audio person. Well, I learned working on reel-to-reel tape. That's how I learned. So razor blade and reel-to-reel is, cutting 2-inch tape with a razor blade is kind of scary. But that's where I learned. And so that's very expensive, obviously, even just maintaining the machines and the size of the machines. And I sort of gravitated towards working in Pro Tools because of the ease. I do programming on top of my tracks mostly, more than I start there. I might come up with a click track or a loop to play to sometimes, but there are definitely programs that are more MIDI and music programming friendly than maybe Pro Tools was in the past.
Yeah.
Of course, they've caught up, but for me, I'm just used to it. And there's many different programs that I think, someone will say, oh, no, this is better than that, but I'm just used to it. For instance, I've done records. We did an EP last go-around where we basically wanted to capture the live energy of the band. So it was, we recorded in a big room and didn't do much to it afterwards. We didn't add a lot of any synths or any layers and things like that. It's pretty much a rock and roll record. But the previous record, Lipstick and Barbed Wire, was done where I recorded in Pro Tools. I would lay down a loop, and then I'd play my reference guitar part, and I'd sing a reference vocal. And then I would start building on that a little bit and then send it to the bass player and the drummer who were on that particular record, Frank Velarde and John Siegler, both very talented guys, both have played with 1 million people. John, in particular, played with Hall & Oates and with Utopia, just an amazing bass player. And the two of them would sit in a room and record to my reference tracks, locking to my click track, and then email it back to me, then put it on Dropbox and send it back to me for me to drop into Pro Tools. So it was done, in a sort of remote way, which is cool in a way. We still wanted to capture the essence of a band, of the energy, but it's a little bit more precise that way. But I've done records where we haven't used Pro Tools at all. I've done records where we've come in and just recorded, 2-inch tape and 24 track, and boom, you got to really figure out I've only got 24 tracks. The drums need 8, and I've got to bounce these down. I mean, you'll see the way the Beatles worked, where they're working on 4-track. It's like you have to commit. You have to say, well, I've got these guitar parts. Let me bounce. They're on 8 tracks, or obviously not on the Beatles stuff, but if they're on, you're using up those your majority of tracks with all of these guitars. You got to bounce them down to maybe 2 tracks, and so that you can free them up. But that means you can't go back to what they were when they were individual tracks, the way you can in Pro Tools. So you have to sort of commit. And there's also something nice about not being able to fix everything and tweak everything. There are beautiful mistakes, as I like to call them. Sometimes when you're looking at the grids of these things and you start tweaking and moving and stuff like that, you sort of lose the essence of the music, because you'll always see something that's not perfect, or you'll always want to, to me, I like to close my eyes and turn my back to the screen. And if something grabs my ear, I might turn around and fix it. But, watching the screen, we're drawn to, oh, well, look, that bass drum's not exactly on that grid. I better shift it. And it's like, but you know what? When I'm listening back, it sounds good because the band is feeling that moment,
Oh yeah, definitely. Can you actually tell us about your fundraising that you're doing?
Yeah, one of the things about the Eric Stuart Band, I kind of joke around a little bit. It's kind of like the mob. Once you're in, you really can't leave. There have been players that have been working with me on and off for many, many, many years, and it's like one big giant family. Now, not everyone is always playing regularly with me because some are still in New York and I'm living in Nashville, and just we're spread out all over the country. But one person in particular, lead guitarist Phil Nick, has worked with me for close to 20 years, has played on every record, and has done big major tours with me, has played dive bars with me, has stuck with me for so many years, and recently was just unfortunately diagnosed with prostate cancer. And that's something that's treatable, and it's something that people have been cured of that, but it's still a rough road, and there's no guarantees with all this stuff. So I figured that I'm not a doctor, and I'm not a really wealthy guy. The tools of the trade that I have are making music. So I thought, well, let's do this twofold. Let's start a new record. I've got songs written that basically are ready for the next album anyway. Even though we're kind of crazy, we do put out albums almost every year and a half, which is kind of crazy. But I said, let's do a record and let's combine two things. It will give Phil something positive to focus on besides his illness, and also let's raise money to help him pay for his medical costs, as well as proceeds from the album can go towards those costs as well, down the line. So we're doing a Kickstarter. If you go to Kickstarter, I think it's kickstarter.com/project/Eric Stuart Band, and then /Eric Stuart Band, the next album. Even if you just look up Eric Stuart Band on Kickstarter, you'll find me. And we're trying, it's a big number for us. I mean, we're an independent band, but we're trying to raise 30 grand for him. Pretty much 10 of that is the album, and 20 of that is for Phil. When you are a freelancer in this business world, and you are hit with an illness that might affect your physical abilities, as well as just you might be exhausted, you might be depressed, whatever. You need extra help, even with all of the healthcare things that have changed in the recent years. It's tough when you are a freelancer, and that's what Phil is. And so we thought this would be a great way to help him, and I'm looking forward to working with him too. He's one of the best guitarists I've ever worked with, or I've ever seen play, and or ever heard play. And this new album will be a great rock and roll album from the Eric Stuart Band, and he will add so much, and it will be fun to do that. So it's sort of bittersweet. Yes, I'm excited to go into the studio and do this, but it's also what we're trying to accomplish is still sort of hard for me to deal with, because he is like a brother to me, and these people are people that I've worked with for so many years. I make a statement to the people that I work with. I say, if we can't have dinner together, if I can't break bread with you, I don't care how great a player you are, it's not worth it, because we spend so much time locked in rooms and locked in tour buses and going through the journey of trying to create and play and be artists together, which requires so much passion and blood, sweat, and tears, that if you don't get along with the people, then it's really not worth it. And so he's someone that I truly get along with. So I'm trying whatever I can to help him out.
That's awesome. Now I have a super serious question.
Yes.
If James and Brock were to make bands, what music
Yes.
bands would they play?
I think that James, because of his kind of, blue blood kind of affectation, and he probably would be like a Depeche Mode fan.
I could see that.
I just think he's more into sort of like electronic stuff and maybe some British kind of influences. That would be what I would think. I'm thinking old school like that, but synthy. You know what I mean? And moody, and because James also, I think, the outfits that he could wear and the things he could do with his hair and stuff like that would work. Now Brock, and you're talking about if they were in the same band. Now, Brock would come to the table probably with, I think, I always say, come rock with Brock. I think Brock is more of a rock and roll guy.
Oh yeah.
I think he's he might be drawn to sort of like classic rock stuff like AC/DC. I think that he'd like to bang his head a little bit.
Yeah.
And really rock out. Because he's got a lot of energy.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So if you put them together, you'd have this really heavy, like, guitar-driven backbeat with sort of like this melodic synth on top of it. I think that's what would happen. And I think James would be more of the lead singer than Brock would.
Oh yeah.
Because when I've had to sing like both of them, I've been told that I'm not supposed to sing well when I sing like Brock, but I can when I approach singing like James like as if I were Tim Curry from Rocky Horror, or something like that. He's or David Bowie. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like James
definitely.
is like Bowie-esque, where Brock is not really a great singer, but he's got the right energy.
Oh yeah, he definitely brings some good riffs to that table.
Mm-hmm. And of course, Kaiba would produce them.
Oh yeah, Kaiba, of course.
Because he's got his own record label,
Exactly. Blue
Right?
Eyes Productions or, something like that.
Exactly.
Definitely.
Yeah. He's got all the marketing planned out.
Oh yeah. So, when you were younger, did you always dream of doing music in voice work, or what were your, when you were 5, what did you want to do?
I definitely was a quote-unquote performer even when I was very, very young. I grew up around it. My mother is a dancer, and I've been told that even when I was, 2 years old, I would stand up. My mother had a steamer trunk at the foot of in the living room that was behind the couch, and I would stand on that and give speeches even before I could speak. I just would address the room. So when I actually went to music and art for art, I actually did a lot of drawing as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And I had friends that were musicians. I had friends that were actors. And I definitely was outgoing and a little bit of a ham, but I was a class clown kind of thing. But it really was not, okay, music is my world or acting is my world. I just was doing my thing. And I remember at sleepaway camp, I had a friend that was a very good guitar player, and he didn't sing at all. And he wanted to do something for the talent show. And this is probably, I must have been 10 or 11,
mm-hmm.
and he was 12. That was a big deal. He was 12 because he had a guitar and an amp, and I was like, that's cool. So he's like, I'm going to play Purple Haze by Jimi Hendrix, and I can't sing. Do you think you would sing it for me? And I wasn't a singer, but I guess he figured I was more outgoing than he was, and so I sang Purple Haze in the camp talent show at age 11 years old, and it's like I wasn't really afraid to do those kinds of things. It was just like, it's part of my personality. And then once I did the sort of the School of Rock thing in 8th grade and I got the bug for that, music was definitely important to me and I started writing. So that was how early that was. But the voice acting thing was almost by accident because I worked at a tennis club out in the Hamptons pretty much my whole life,
mm-hmm.
and I was sort of like a hitting pro, a teaching pro, and towards the later part of my teens and 20s. And one of the members owned a recording studio in New York and knew that I was looking for a job that wasn't a summer job.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, hey, we need a new assistant. Would you be interested in coming in and interviewing for it? Because I know you're into audio and, and you're into music. And I thought, this is exactly what I want to be doing, like working in a recording studio. This is perfect. And I went in and I interviewed for the job, and the woman that was sort of like the main producer there hired me, and I made coffee and I took out the trash, and I kept the studio, organized and answered the phone. And after a couple of weeks, it was like, well, when did the bands start coming in here? And they were like, well, we don't really do a lot of music. We mostly do voiceovers, like radio and TV commercials. We cast and produce those for clients. And, growing up, we watch cartoons. We know what voiceovers,
mm-hmm.
what voice actors are. To me, it was Mel Blanc and it was Casey Kasem. But we also know, okay, commercials, I get it. But you think that most of it, especially if you're not really in the business, back then, you think, well, those are actors who are filling in the blank between movies and television gigs and doing some voiceover work. not really thinking that these were like that's a career unto itself. So I really learned about that business from not knowing anything, to then going from production assistant to assistant casting director. Then I was the casting director. Then I was producing. And then I ran that studio for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
So in between all of that, there were times that I'd have to jump in the booth and read with people, or if someone didn't show up for an audition and the two-character spot, I'd read with them. And slowly but surely, clients would want to use me. And the timing was perfect, because just as I was offered the tour to go out with Ringo, I was like, you know what? The 9-to-5 job's not working for me anymore. I'm going to get an agent. I'm going to be a voice actor, and that will allow me to go on tour as a musician. And that's how it fell into place. I was directing before I was acting, and of course, I've done both of those things for so many years now. I've probably directed as many shows as I've acted in. So it's nice to have an education on both sides of the glass. I learned when I was directing, I would pay attention to even just the way the actors responded and absorb that like a sponge. Working with some of the best actors in New York City was a great education for me as an actor.
Oh, yeah, I can definitely.
So that's kind of, I didn't have a plan for that, and I love doing it. I was never like, master of all voices, and I'm still not. I do some funny things, and I think what I do is with my commercial work is I'm able to read commercial copy as if I know what I'm talking about, even when I don't, which is the key to being a good voice actor with that sort of stuff. And with the cartoon things, most of the characters I play are comedic or sarcastic, which those two things, I must say, have come pretty naturally.
Yeah, I know how that is.
How
that is.
Yes.
So, what do you like to any aspiring musicians or voice actors, since you've had so much, like, your hands in so many different pockets of that field? What would you recommend or tell them?
Well, I think one of the biggest lost arts is being a true apprentice. I think that we are so driven by the pot of gold and getting paid for everything, even in the beginning, that we miss opportunities. One of the things I do at the convention is I'll have a panel on how to get into voice acting, and then the other panel is on adaptation and directing. And what I tell the people that are interested in this business is, look, if you wanted to be a great carpenter, you'd find the great carpenter in town, and you would say to them, hey, I've got a couple of hours a week that I can donate to you. I will clean up your shop. I'll put your tools away. I'll do anything that to help you run your business if in return you let me shadow you and learn from you. That's how I learned how to work in the studio. That's how I learned how to be a voice actor. I was shadowing people that were expert in their field. And school is great, but you want to also have real life experiences and learn how to roll with those things. So I tell people, hey, look, radio stations need interns. You don't want to be the intern that's just only taking out the trash. You say, I'll take out the trash if you let me sit in and watch the live personality, like someone like you. Watch what you do on the air.
Oh, yeah.
Learn how you turn the music on, turn the music off, cut to a commercial. Watch a pro do it. And because if you came to the door and said, I like a gig, and you have your hand out for money, they're going to say, we're not hiring, we don't have any room. But if you say, I really want to get involved in this field, I will donate my time so that I can learn, they're going to say, you know what? Yeah, we could use the extra help. Because I'll tell you, the other side of that is, if, let's say, I was the intern at a recording studio that produced commercials, and they knew that I was an aspiring voice actor, and I'm making coffee and doing all of these things. Sometimes scripts come in where they need a young guy for a commercial, and they say, you know what, I don't have time to cast for this. I don't have time to go calling all of my agent people. Eric, could you just pop your head in here? Let's hear what you can do. And you know what? If you're in the building, you have a better chance of getting a shot at auditioning for something. And that's how a lot of gigs are booked. It happened with me. I mean, my first commercial campaign was Enterprise Rent-A-Car.
Nice.
I was the guy that said, welcome to Enterprise Rent-A-Car. How can I help you? On a campaign. Why? Because I was in the studio. I was working in the studio, and that was my first gig. And they needed someone right away. So there's that way. The other thing is to find serious. You find a great coach who knows voice acting. Stage acting is great, but we as voice actors do not have the crutch of also being able to leave big pauses in our speaking, and also using physical gestures and looks. We don't have any of that. We only have what we sound like. And someone who is really a voice actor, a coach, a director, finding that person and working with them so that they can help you find your voices is a big thing. Taking acting classes just in general, doing improv is a great thing. But I will say the words of warning are, don't go to some website and find scripts, download them, record them yourself, put together your own demo reel, and slap some stock music behind it and go, okay, I'm ready to do this, because you won't get hired. And if you do get hired by some miracle, you won't be able to recreate anything that you've done because you have not trained. It's not just, oh, I'm talking. This is great. This is fine. There's nuances to it. And being a singer is helpful, too. Inflection is pitch. We change our pitch to stress certain words. So understanding how to use that instrument that way is very helpful, and singers have a little bit of an edge that way. The core of it is acting.
Okay, last few things so we can wrap this up. All right. When you were in Buffalo, did you do anything exciting, or were you straight to the UB campus, or stuck there?
No, we went around a little bit. Great town. It's actually, I had never really hung out there, and there's a great vibe there. Seems like a great social scene, and I didn't get a chance to see any live music. I would have liked to have seen that, but it seems like a cool hang, and you have some great little restaurants and bars, and I'm trying to remember. There was this one little health food spot that made amazing. Oh goodness, what was their thing? It was like, and they had these great pickles and. Oh, because I'm like a health food nut. I'm trying to remember.
Was it like, there's a store down in the Elmwood Village called the Lexington Co-op?
No, this was a tiny little walk-in thing, but it's like they only made pancakes, but it was like health food ones. I'm trying to remember what it was that they made. I'll remember it, of course, when we're not on the air. But
just send me an email and figure it out.
Yes, but it was just a great hang. I mean, the people are very nice there, and it was a good time of year, so it wasn't too cold.
Oh yeah.
But I like the architecture. It
snowed the week before, I believe, too. Actually.
Yeah. I think it had been bad the week before. Right?
Yeah.
I like the architecture too. I like the houses.
Oh yeah.
The houses. They're just some beautiful old homes. So that was kind of neat to. I don't do a lot of walking anymore because I live in a driving state. I grew up walking around the neighborhoods of Brooklyn. So to walk down sidewalks past those kinds of homes, which reminded me a lot of Brooklyn. Brooklyn. It was just nice. It was very cool.
Yeah, once when you get closer to the downtown area, when you walk down like Delaware, Elmwood, in certain areas, you just see the old houses, and it's some of the prettiest stuff. And even the buildings downtown, we have beautiful buildings, and we have 2 Frank Lloyd Wright houses within the area, and it's a really great place. And I have hope for this area.
Grilled cheese.
Grilled cheese?
That's what it was.
Okay.
They made all sorts of amazing, like, healthy grilled cheese sandwiches.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's like, but when I say grilled cheese, I'm not talking about like a piece of Kraft American on like 2 pieces of white bread. I'm talking about like unbelievable combinations. That's what that place was.
Okay.
It was a health food grilled cheese place.
Okay, I'll have to Google that.
You have to. Yes, because it's right. Yeah, trust me. I'm already getting hungry. It's about lunchtime, and I'm thinking about that. It was fantastic. That's what it was.
Okay. Do you know if that was around the UB campus area or a different area in Buffalo?
It wasn't right near the campus.
It wasn't? Okay, then I'll definitely be able to pinpoint that a little bit better.
You'll be. I'm sure if you looked up healthy gourmet grilled cheese place in Buffalo, you'll find it. But yeah, there you go.
All right.
Yeah, I didn't do a lot of touristy stuff.
Okay.
I like to get a sense of a city or a town by the people.
Oh, yeah.
Coming to New York, you should go see the Statue of Liberty, things like that. You should definitely go do that. But I also feel like if I hang out at that local diner for a couple of hours, I'm going to get more of a sense of what makes up that community.
Mm-hmm.
You listen to conversations, just the characters that walk in and out. I'm a people watcher, so I like that. So, yeah, that's kind of what I was doing, was getting a sense of the people.
Okay, cool. Okay, now can you wrap this up with a little station ID for us?
You got it. You ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
Hey, this is Eric Stuart, voice of James from Team Rocket, and Brock from Pokemon, saying you're listening to WBNY 91.3 FM. and check out the Eric Stuart Band.
Perfect. Well, I'm gonna wrap this up a little bit. Thank you
great
so
interview.
much.
I really appreciate the questions, and thanks for having me on the air. Anytime.
All right.
And if somebody's got any, if they want to check out ericstewart.com and write me or find me on Facebook or Twitter, things like that, I try to answer as much of the fan mail as I can. So thanks for having me on.
Oh yeah, no problem. All right, guys, we're gonna wrap this interview up with more music from Eric Stuart. And the song is from the album Lipstick and Barbed Wire with the song Lipstick and Barbed Wire. Listen to 91.3 FM, WBNY.